To cut or bulk? That is the skinny fat question. Like the prince or princess Hamlet of Fitness, this is a question you've mused over for some time. Do you lose the excess body fat first or dive straight into building muscle? Well, it's time to wonder no more. Here's your complete guide to whether you should cut or bulk. As with most questions in the training and nutrition world, the answer to the cut or bulk conundrum starts with two important yet equally annoying words. It depends. You see, there's no definitive answer to fit everyone. It's not like a one-size-fits-all poncho from Universal Studios. There's nuances and circumstances unique to you, meaning what's right for you may be wildly different to the next person. But that doesn't really help, does it? So when deciding whether to cut or bulk, you need some guidelines, a framework like the plans to the Death Star. And in this podcast, I'm going to give you those plans. Trust me, after listening to this podcast, you'll feel like achieving that badass body is easier than shooting Womp Rats in your T16 back home. Now, these guidelines aren't just something I threw together in 5 minutes. This is the exact process I use with all my clients and how I determine if it's first stop fat loss or all aboard the gain train. Woo woo! So wherever you are on your journey to building a lean, strong, healthy, sexy as fuck body, by the end of this podcast, you'll know whether it's time to cut or bulk. Think of me as your layer, thawing you from your cut or bulk carbonite-like paralysis. So on that basis, let's start with the basics, my young Padawan. Cut or bulk? What does it actually fucking mean? Rightly or wrongly, I'm going to assume you're relatively new to this whole fitness thing. After all, if you're a seasoned pro and already achieved Jedi status in the gym, you probably don't need me to tell you when it's time to cut or bulk. So with that in mind, we need to start by deciphering the bro code. What the hell does cut or bulk actually mean? Because already the terminology might be quite off-putting. Cutting conjures up images of self-harm, which is a half-decent analogy for some diets, or like a scene from a horror movie. And bulking isn't much better. It creates a mental picture of you just getting as fat as possible, like orca fat. I mean, what woman wants to bulk in that sense of the word? Not many, right? Now, I'll tell you up front, I'm not the biggest fan of the word cut or bulk in this context. They feel antiquated and steeped in bro science. But sadly, cut or bulk is a phrase you can't get away from. Quite frankly, it's why you're listening to this. No doubt that phrase is what drew you to come listen. So for now, we'll use the terms, even if it is through gritted teeth. So what's the definition of bulking? Bulking means building muscle. Back in the day, it kind of meant just eat what the hell you want, train all day and watch the gains come. Balls to the fact you might turn into a bit of a blimp at the same time. It's all about bulking season and your efforts to be the incredible bulk. So what's the definition of cutting? Cutting is pretty much the reverse of all that, and it's got nothing to do with self-harm. It's all about losing body fat. So when you hear someone say they're cutting, what they actually mean is they're in the process of losing a bit of body fat. Not as scary as you previously thought, and actually it sounds like exactly what you want to do. So in summary, the decision between cut or bulk is a decision between building muscle, bulking, or losing body fat, cutting. Simple concepts made confusing. Well done, fitness industry. You've done it again. Now, what is the skinny fat dilemma? So now we know what we're talking about. How do you know what to do? It's a good question. And it's at this point you get introduced to another phrase, skinny fat. Now, what is skinny fat? Well, the term skinny fat refers to someone who doesn't look particularly overweight, but lacks muscle definition. Basically, for a dude, it's the dad bod scenario, with a t-shirt on, you don't look fat. There's definitely no huge beer belly, and you're not waddling around town like an obese penguin. But whip that t-shirt off and there's a bit of a flabby belly, no chest muscles to speak of, and arms akin to an anorexic twiglet. For the ladies, it's a similar story. You're thin, but lack muscle. Your body doesn't have the shapely, strong curves you want, and you feel everything just needs a little tightening up. Know what I mean? This is skinny fat. But why focus on this? Well, think of it this way. If you're overweight or very overweight, it's pretty obvious you should shed a few pounds as your main priority. Conversely, if you're super skinny, then building some muscle is even more obvious than the fact bantha tracks mean there must be some people around. So how did you get skinny fat in the process? If you feel you might be the dictionary definition of skinny fat, you might be wondering, how the hell did you get there? More often than not, the look hasn't come from a lack of effort. Truth is, it's largely from incorrect training and nutrition over a number of years. Now, more than likely, you're skinny fat because of 3 reasons. Number 1, pounding cardio for hours and hours. Number 2, a low protein diet. And number 3, a very low calorie intake. So why is cardio not the route to lose body fat? Well, there's a popular misconception that cardio is the best way for you to lose body fat. Now, cardio certainly is not bad for you. In fact, it can be very useful when used in the right way. But the issue comes when you use it to excess, especially when you're in a calorie deficit and aiming to lose fat, because hours and hours of exercise doesn't automatically lead you to greater levels of fat loss. Studies show that a high frequency of endurance training can impair your strength and muscle development. So if your goal is to build a leaner and more muscular physique, then endless amounts of cardio is not the way to go. And if you look into the other studies on the subject, there's even more evidence to back this theory up. The bottom line is that too much cardio may negatively affect your desire to have a lean, badass body, and ultimately is part of the reason you have a skinny fat physique. Now, why is a low protein diet working against you? So if you're in a calorie deficit, then you will lose weight. That's a given. But if you neglect protein, then you run the risk of losing muscle as well as fat. So what's the solution? Well, it's pretty simple. Keep protein intake high. Keep training and don't be excessive with your calorie deficit. So this brings us on to the big decision. So now you know what this cut or bulk business is all about and you understand skinny fat. So how do you know which to pick? Great question. You know you need to build some muscle. So do you go down that route? Or do you try and shed the belly fat first and then go all bulk Hogan later? So let me answer that for you. The first place to start is how much body fat you have, and more importantly, how you feel about your current body image. Confused? Let me explain. If you're not that happy with your current body fat percentage, i.e. it's too high, then bulking makes no sense, because the process of building muscle is likely to see you gain a bit of body fat at the same time. It's just part of the process. So if you're already feeling fat and overweight, then bulking is only going to make that worse. Also, if you're very overweight, then losing body fat has to be the way forward. Getting down to a healthier body fat range should be of paramount importance. Adding more body fat because you want to build muscle is not going to be a great idea for your long-term health. And besides, you can still build muscle while dieting, especially if you're brand new to this. But if you're somewhere in the middle, i.e. skinny fat, then the decision isn't quite so clear-cut, right? And that's where the golden rule comes in. At this point in time, I used to say it's important to work out your body fat percentage, but in truth, it's not necessary. Why? Firstly, when you estimate it, you'll be wrong. Unless you have your body fat measured by DEXA scan, or you have somebody cut you open and measure it, your estimate will be inaccurate. And yes, that goes for the fancy bathroom scales you bought, the posh machine at the gym, or whatever other wacky device you're using. But it just doesn't matter. So now your cut or bulk decision just got that bit easier. Behold the golden rule. 2.0. So you should cut if you have no visible abs and or an excessive amount of body fat. Now, the only variation there is for females. Some females are very lean but don't yet have very, very defined abs. So that has to be a personal decision as to whether you feel it's right to cut or you're at a healthy body fat percentage for you. That's the caveat I would put on that. And you should bulk if you have those visible set of abs and or you're very, very lean and comfortable about putting on a little body fat. Now, I'll say that when I use the term visible abs, I don't mean you should be absolutely shredded to the bone. No, I mean you can see a clear definition without tensing the fuck out of every muscle and sinew. But why follow this golden rule? Well, there's several reasons why you should follow the golden rule when deciding whether to cut or bulk. Here's just a few reasons why the rule works for the majority of people. Now, first up, you're more likely to feel good about the process. Take a moment to project your thoughts forward for a second. If you haven't got abs right now and decide to bulk, are you going to be happy with a body fat increase? As you start to build muscle and your body fat goes up, will you be comfortable with how you look in the mirror every morning? And that might sound a fairly trivial point, but it's practical and real. Because liking what stares back at you in the mirror can be very motivating or demotivating. So if you're piling on the body fat and feeling unhappy about the process, then sticking to your diet is going to be a struggle. And at the end of the day, you don't want or need to put yourself through that. Ultimately, it'll be much easier to make progress if you're happy. And there aren't many people that are happy getting unnecessarily fatter. Number 2, when you cut, it won't be a long, drawn-out misery. Most people want to lose body fat in the shortest amount of time possible. Nobody on planet Earth enjoys restricting calories. You want to get that shit out of the way ASAP, right? So the last thing you want to do is make the task harder than it needs to be. If losing body fat should be your primary goal according to the golden rule, then bulking is going to be a bad move. Because eventually, you're going to have quite a bit of fat to lose. And more often than not, that's going to be a long, drawn-out process. And who the hell wants to spend more time away from Ben and Jerry than is necessary? On the plus side, as you're probably new to the process, those newbie gains are a thing. It's the only time you'll get where dropping body fat and building muscle is pretty easy. So why not take advantage of the fact? Have your cake and eat it, although make sure you count the calories first, of course. Number 3, when you bulk, you'll gain muscle and won't look like Jabba the Hutt. Just that heading alone should make you want to follow the golden rule. If you're starting at a relatively high body fat percentage, then getting fatter is going to be detrimental to building muscle. And here's why. Studies indicate that the more body fat you have, the more insulin sensitivity decreases. And this leads to a greater tendency to gain fat. In addition to that, protein synthesis, an important factor in building muscle, is negatively affected. Further to that, the greater your body fat levels, the lower your testosterone levels are likely to be. And this is crucially important if your goal is to build muscle, because testosterone plays a pivotal role in the muscle building process. So with that in mind, you can see why trying to build muscle with a high body fat percentage is not ideal. Your ability to gain muscle will be hindered, and you'll also get fatter than you wanted. So what's the final word on cut or bulk? Well, once you get past the slightly nonsensical terms, deciding whether to cut or bulk is actually pretty straightforward. All you need to do is figure out if you're carrying excess body fat and then apply the golden rule. And once you've done that, follow these guidelines so you know when to flip from cut to bulk and vice versa. So here's your cutting guidelines. If you've got no visible abs and or an excessive amount of body fat, but just remember that caveat I made if you are female. Keep protein intake high at around 1.8 to 2.7 grams per kilo of body weight. Calculate a moderate to aggressive but not reckless calorie deficit. 10 to 20% should be fine for most people. Follow a good weightlifting routine focused on progressive overload. Target 8 to 10,000 steps per day. Supplement with cardio where necessary. Ditch the fat burning supplements, they don't work, and stop cutting when you start seeing the ab definition and or you feel happy about adding a little body fat. Now here's your bulking guidelines. So you've got visible abs and or you're comfortable with a slight increase in body fat. Keep protein intake high, again at around 1.8 to 2.7 grams per kilo of body weight. Aim for 4 to 6 servings of protein during the day. Calculate a small calorie surplus. 10% increase on maintenance is a good place to start. Follow a good weightlifting program, again focused on progressive overload. Don't bother with cardio unless you want or need to. Ditch the BCAAs, testosterone boosters, and other useless supplements, and then just stop bulking when you don't want your body fat to increase any further. But bear in mind, these guidelines aren't definitive, and there'll certainly be situations where they're not right. In fact, you might be the person that they're not right for, and that's cool. These guidelines are written as a reflection of what works well for most people. So if you want to do something different, cool, fill your Jedi boots. But if you choose to follow the guidelines, I'm pretty confident you'll be well on the way to achieving the body you want. Just remember, it won't come overnight. So be consistent and patient. Trust the process and you'll reap the benefits. Oh, and let's stop using the phrase cut or bulk. It's lose body fat and build muscle. Much more normal and a lot less bro. So, do you need help piecing your training and nutrition together for free? Even with all the answers to those questions that have been bugging you, getting started can feel a little overwhelming. You're never quite sure if you've got it quite right. So here's the thing. I put together a Lean Life Kickstarter pack to help you make the next big step in your fitness journey. Right now, I'm giving away the first 4 weeks of my Total Body Blueprint training program. P.S. There's a male and a female version that you can grab. This program is geared to anyone with less than 2 years gym experience and looking for a solid weight training program. It's even suited to you if you're making your first tentative footsteps into the gym. This is the program my clients are using to get amazing results, and I want you to get a flavor of it. But it doesn't just stop at a free program. On top of that, over the course of those 4 weeks, I'm going to send you a ton of extra information, all for free. Here's what you'll get. A 5-step guide on how to calculate your calories to achieve your goals. So that means you can start off on the right foot from day 1. Well, actually day 2, because I don't want to overload you with info. I'll also send you a 6-step guide to control your cravings so you can get rid of the temptations that have caused you to fail in the past. But it doesn't stop there. I'm going to give you access to professionally created recipe packs, cheat sheets, and my Facebook support group, all for free. And all you need to do is click the link below to grab your copy. But you best hurry, because the offer won't be there forever. So if you haven't been quick enough, you might already be too late. So check out that link in the show notes. Now, lastly, if you've enjoyed this podcast, come and let me know. Come and find me on Instagram, slide up in the DMs, and just go to iron_paradise_fitness and tell me what you think. But for now, all that's left for me to say is keep living the lean life, and I'll see you on the next episode. I'm off to hit the gym and go bulking. Build muscle. Catch you later.